Chapter 51. As I walked through my old home, everything was wrecked. The curtains were torn, tables and windows broken, beautiful paintings torn to shreds, books burnt, chandeliers shattered on the floor. It was all in ruins. As hard it was to see it. This only motivated me more to kill Vlad. I went out back where the garden was. He was waiting. He was standing in the snow, holding a white rose. Roses are so beautiful in the snow. Makes them look so lively. Vlad turns around and smiles, showing his sharp fangs. Good to see you again, old friend. I did not respond. I was in no mood for preachy chats. Vlad chuckles and slowly took his cloak off. Oh, Oz, you have truly not changed, have you? You're still your brooding self. Vlad snickers. I admit I do miss you. I truly do. If we were under different circumstances, I would want you rooting by my side. You are, or at least were, my best friend. But seeing as you are to be my new source of power, he smiles widely. Well, I guess we can't now. I walked to Vlad, looking him straight in the eyes until I stood before him. What were you doing, Nick? You haven't changed either. Always loved playing with your opponent. Just like how you play with your food. If I recall correctly, you only ever do that to buy time because you were always afraid. Vlad stood there with his jaw clenched. I leaned in a little more and said in a lower tone, when you die, because you will, it is going to be by my hand. The last thing you will see is me grabbing your head and knowing that I am going to rip it off your pathetic, weak thorn that reeks of fear. Vlad's eyes were wide with rage. I am not going to kill you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. I only want your blood. I will leave you, chained in the dungeon, knowing, he leans in, that I will be in bed with your mate. My hand, which was already in a fist, raises up and I slam it down upon Vlad's face. He goes flying in the air, but he lands on his feet, fangs exposed. Vlad roars as he jumped in the air and tries to take me to the ground. He fails in that attempt, but the impact of his push sends the both of us flying in the air and hitting the ground with a loud thud. Vlad picks me up and slams me against the stone wall. He extends his fangs to plunge into my blood vessel. I growl as I push against him, but ATS strong, very strong. Just a little bit closer. Vlad snarls as his eyes were blazing in desperation. I look down at his knee. Then I look back up at him. You're right. Just a little bit closer, I said back through my teeth. Vlad pushes harder, making him step forward more. Bingo. I lift my foot and with all my might kick back his knee, causing it to make a loud snap. Like a stick. Vlad collapses on the floor yelling in pain while I hold his leg. I grab Nick by the neck and lift him. I could hear the clicking of his bones, his pulse beating hard against my hand. You played a game you thought you could win. Be careful when you take a man's wife and a man's child and then ask him to play, because he will do anything to win. Nick's eyes were red from the lack of oxygen, his face swelling up, veins prominent and body shaking. However, I didn't notice him grab something from his pocket and popping it in his mouth. What the hell did he just eat? Suddenly Vlad's eyes were black. Pure charcoal. He smiles down at me and grabs my hand. I force my hand to stay on his neck, but he shakes it off. What the fuck? I snarled. Vlad drops to the ground. He swings his fist. I roll to the right and escaped a plunging blow to the head. What the fuck did you eat? Vlad chuckles. Just gave myself a little bit of a boost. Old friend. His smile drops. He breaks off a long branch as if it was nothing. He lunges forward, swinging his newfound weapon. I jump back, keeping my eye on his new toy. He uses his whole body to swing toward me. I growled and grabbed the stick, stopping it from hitting me, but it causes me to stumble backward. I jump up and flip over Vlad. I wrap my arms around his neck, tightening my hold. Vlad roars as he raises his elbow and gives a hard blow to my cheek. I stumble backwards. Vlad uses my moment of weakness to give a lasting bash to the head with his branch. I fall the ground. My head was slightly spinning. I blink away the daze and get back up. Vlad jumps forward and tries to jab me, but I catches his fist. I yank him forward, making him stumble into the force of my own fist swinging forward. Vlad was dazed. His eyes look glazed over for a moment. I grab him by the collar. Vlad roars and yanks my hand away, pushing me off of him. He jumps forward, swinging his branch. I swing to the left and right, dodging every attack he had. Is that all you got, old friend? I snarled sarcastically. Vlad was getting angry. He swung his branch again, but I moved quickly, making his branch smash against a steel gate and snapping. Vlad roars and tackles me to the ground. He wraps his left arm around my neck. I could easily get out of. However, with his right hand, he grabbed the smashed stick. It had a sharp end. He moves to plunge it into me, but I tightly grab his hand and push against his force to not let it pierce me. I growl as I push as hard as I could. Vlad was stronger. Whatever the hell he ate, it made him more powerful. I growl and snarl as I keep the branch from plunging. You see this? Ours, Vlad said in my ear. This is your deaf old friend. I didn't want to kill you, but now it's just too damn tempting. My nose flared and my jaw was clenched. My blood was pumping, my muscles tensing as I tried as hard as I could to keep his wooden blade at bay. Everything became quiet in my head. There was no panic or anger. Just her. I keep just her in my mind. I felt peace. I love you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, I said through my teeth. Instead of fighting against Vlad, I help him plunge it deep within me. I roar in pain as I felt the burning rip of my skin and flesh opening. But what Vlad didn't know is that I made it stab right through him also. I hear him roar in agony. I use what was left of my strength to pull it out. I yell and I felt myself shaking from the mental battle in my mind. My instinct told me stop for self-preservation, but the knowledge of doing what has to be done goes against that. A position where I was inflicting pain upon myself. I yanked the damn thing out and rolled off of Vlad. I take deep breaths. I looked at Vlad. He laid there pale and shaking. I smirked through my pain and said in a grunt, "Wouldn't stake so far." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Mythical for the vampires, the werewolves. I crawled toward him and got up on my knees. I raised my fist and used all of my strength to pound down on him. All the while I was shouting in pleasure as I saw the pain I was causing him. I grabbed onto his neck and dug my fingers into his skin. His eyes were wide as they looked upon me. I snarled, "Goodbye, old friend." I dug my claws into his neck and began to rip it slowly, bit by bit. Out of nowhere, a flash of green light. I was thrown back by an unimaginable force. Someone exclaimed. I landed on the snow, which made me groan in pain. I used my elbows to prop myself up. Diamore stood there shaking her head. "Oh, ours." She smiles through her red lips. "You've been a bad boy." I ran as hard as I could the woods, but then I stopped. "Where are you even going, Iris?" I shouted at myself. I looked around and all I could see was trees and snow. Okay, wait. Where would ours go? Where would Vlad want to fight? I groaned and rubbed my forehead. Nothing. I continued to shout at myself like a maniac. I turned to the right, but that didn't feel right, so I turned to the left. That didn't feel right either. Ugh, what is wrong with you, Iris? I stood still and took a deep breath. Please, something give me a sign of where to go. Suddenly, the flower, it was glowing brighter. I frowned and held it up. I turned to the left and to my surprise it glowed less. I turned to the right and the light grew brighter. I looked up at the sky. Thank you. I used the flower as almost like a guide to go to whatever direction it grew brighter toward. As I stood up and held my wound. DMOA, what the hell are you doing here? You cannot interfere with business that concerns the curse. She leans against the gate and smiles widely. Oh, my beautiful Ars. You never did anything according to my plans. She kicks off of the gate and walks towards me. But then again, that's what I always loved about you. I frowned in disgust. What are you doing here? I asked firmly. Vlad turns his head and looks at me and smiles. She looks at her roses and stood there admiring them while saying, I needed to quicken the process. Vlad was just the kick-off to get the ball rolling. I was getting tired of not having what I wanted. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I clenched my jaw and snarled. You started this. You're working with Vlad. She laughs. No, my darling. I don't work with Vlad. Vlad works for me. He was my loyal servant. Why would you wage war against me? I did whatever the fuck you told me to do. All of this for one fucking flower. It was a fucking flower. What the fuck is wrong with you? And you said you can't interfere with your curse because how powerful it is. She shrugs nonchalantly. I guess I kind of lied. The roses don't mean anything to me. They were just simple roses. But I had to make up some kind of story to keep you all around. A deep rage was burning my veins. Is there even a curse? I said through my teeth. You took my memories to keep me here. To keep me as your little puppet. I did unforgivable things in your name to repay you for picking a fucking rose that I can't even remember why I did it in the first place. But that isn't it. I took a step forward and yelled. I suffered for nothing, so what did I do that was worth a punishment such as this? Maori stood there with a deep scowl on her face. Her eyes glowed in anger. I should have killed her where she stood. I growled through the pain as I kept bleeding. How do I break this curse? You lied about the rose. You must have lied about how to break it too. There's a way you haven't even told me about. Isn't there? She looked like she was about to snap until her face changes into one of serene. No, you're right. I haven't told you. But I did tell her. I frowned. Who? Or turns and waves her hand, and Iris comes stumbling out of the forest. My eyes widen as I took a step forward. Or ever pushes me back with the force of her magic. I snarled. What the fuck are you playing at? or A? She smiles. You ask how to break the curse. So I'm going to tell you. Iris stood there wide-eyed as she took in the scene in front of her. Iris. or A stood there smiling. Glad you could join the party. I was beginning to worry you weren't going to show up. I had the flower in my bag. Oz looked at me. Worry wrecked his eyes. I stepped towards him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But was slammed back by the force of Ras magic. or moved gracefully toward me. I stood still and watched her every move. She stops in front of me, observing my face. She raises her long-nailed fingers and ran it softly across my cheek. A cold chill went up my spine. So beautiful. She ran her long nails through my hair. So fair. So pure and bright. She leans into my ear. Makes me feel. Looking at you, she said in a low and menacing tone. She brushes my hair away from my shoulders and held them in a tight grip. Look at your beautiful eyes. Handsome, isn't he? If only you knew him like I do. I know him better than you, I said certainly. Oz looked unsettled and unconvinced by or standing behind me. Possibly. or I knew was a smile. Oz steps forward and growls. Enough, or A. Your business is with me, not her. or aves her finger, pushing Oz back. She sighs and rests her hand on my shoulder. I felt repulsed and squirmish with her so close to me. She sighs and says, Don't you just love how he makes you feel? He makes you feel adored. How he looks at you, loves you, make you feel safe. I remember feeling like that. He is totally and utterly loyal to you. He would not love anybody else. Or so he says. or A spins around, her red hair flowing flawlessly in the moonlight. But what about you? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Me, how loyal are you to us? She turned silently with a mischievous glint in her eyes. She walked towards us. He looks at her with pure hatred. She cups his face. Everything in me wants to rip her hand off. She runs her fingers up his arms and on his shoulders. She turns around and faces me. Do you remember our conversation? To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We had discussed things regarding the curse. I racked through my memories and remembered the first time I met DM or A. I was still blind at the time, but that conversation was burned in my memory. A question to be answered. She smiles. Good job. I'm glad you remembered. A question. Ours said. He turns to DM or A. Give me the fucking question and I'll answer it. She laughs and said, Oh my love, you don't need to answer anything. She turns to me with a wickedness on her face. This is a question only Iris can answer. And Iris alone. RS's jaw was clenching and unclenching as his eyes were reflecting with murder while looking at DM Ore. The witch steps away and looks to me. Do you love ours? To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. DM Ore asks. I take in deep breaths as my heart was pounding against my chest and the hold of the bag tightens, yes. Are you sure? He has done horrific things. His heart is stained in black ink. I felt my own anger stir. No, it's not. I know his heart. I look at Oz and say, his heart is good. He's strong. Strong enough to defeat his own demons. Oz stares back at me with a softness in them. DM or aggravated by my answer. She walks toward me. Step by step I got more nervous. She stops in front of me and grabs me chin roughly. She looks down upon me and said, To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Would you die for ours? Willingly. No ours shouts in rage. He came running, but DM or waves her hand, pushing him back. I looked at ours as he lay there holding his wound. He looks at me and shook his head. I knew what DM or A was asking. For ours to be free. I needed to die. I always imagined what our life would have been like together. I would fantasize about doing wonderful things. But what is love without sacrifice? Anything worth having or worth saving is never easy. I gave him a soft smile. I knew what I had to do. DM Ore had been so concentrated on me that she did not know that ours came running. He grabs DM Ore and rips her away from me and threw her across the snow. She lands on the ground, but she gets pulled back up with an invisible force of her own doing. She turns around with a deep scowl. Do you want to fight? To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Then let us fight. She laughs as she raises her arms. Oz pushes me behind him. Oz, what were you doing? I yelled at him. I am not letting you die for me. Oz shouts. He stands in front of me preparing for whatever DMA has planned. Dimora's glowing power is raises in the air. Vlad's body began to glow green and he stands up. No wound marking his body. His eyes glowing a bright green as he smiles at Haas. DM or waves her hand and Vlad moves forward, charging at Haas. My mate lunges forward as both of them collide into a fight. Haas, stop. She is wounded. He can't win this on his own. I growled as I looked at DM Ore. Her smile was wide as she inflicted pain. I sprinted to her and tackled her to the ground. She leaves Vlad to fight as she pushes me off. She stands in front of me. Her hair was messy and her eyes were crazy. I should have killed you as soon as you stepped out of that damn sanctuary. She raises her palms. Glowing green light radiated from them. Noira's ran. Oz pushes Vlad off wide-eyed in fear when Nick came and tackled him to the ground. I grabbed my bag and opened it. I brought the glass flower out. Please work. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I raised it up in the air. Dimora's eyes shined with fear as she saw what I had. Where did you find that? The flower shined bright and brighter, until I couldn't even see any more. I closed my eyes and felt the flower break open. The light floated up and in a flash. It disappears. Nothing happened. I waited for a moment, and still nothing happened. I frowned when I looked at DM Ori. She looks at me and began cackling. Was that supposed to be your secret weapon? I looked down at the broken glass. This doesn't make sense. I shouted in anger. I looked at DM Ori hopeless as to how I was to defeat her. This was supposed to be my last chance. I had nothing else to fight with. Hope had abandoned me to my fate. My eyes went to Oz. I stepped forward in fear as he was on the ground, beaten and broken, but he still gets back up. Tears filled my eyes. I didn't know what to do. The ground rumbles deeply as I saw dark figures coming out of the forest. I fell to my knees in defeat as I saw Vlad's army, ready to kill. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. DM or A chuckles. Oz had 6 chances to save you, but he couldn't. Let him die. It is only fair. It was 5 chances, I said through my tears. I came back 5 times. DM or he looks at me and raises her brow. Are you sure? I frowned 6. It was 6. It was 5. Wasn't it? Think. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Lillian said, you know everything already, but you need to connect the dots. As the story goes, Kira wanted to build a life with Esma. She had become his one and only love. And when he took her, she turned into a flower, and her petals flowed away. But the question always was, did Esm really turn into a flower? Someone put a spell on Ez. My eyes widened and my mind was beyond shocked. But who would do that? Who would have a grudge against? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Or even Kiro. Then it made sense. His ex-lover. The woman that fell in love with Kiro. 6 lives. 6 chances. 6 petals. DM or A approaches me and grabs me by my hair, making me yell in pain. DM or A bends down and says in my ear, you stole him from me. I loved him and you took him from me. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. I said in a breathless tone. In the reincarnation of Esm, my eyes went to Oz. You trapped him for revenge. You stole his memories and trapped him in this mortal form. He deserves it. She screams. He left me. He pretended to love me. The curse was that Oz was a hellhound. It was a curse of imprisonment. He needed to be free in order to defeat DM away. A light flickered on the ground. My breath hitched when I saw the shattered flower glass was there no more. There laid a glowing glass knife. Tear pricked my eyes as I looked at my mate. He was bloody and weakening by the minute, and yet he's still fighting with everything he had. I grabbed the knife and it fit in my hand perfectly. I was scared out of my mind. I was scared of feeling the pain and not knowing what comes after this. But despite all of that, I knew it'd be worth it because he would be free and maybe in some ways. I would be too. Tears streaming down my face as I took a deep breath, collecting every bit of courage within myself. Vlad had gotten on top of ours, trying to push down a wooden stake into his heart. Our SS face was scrunched with pain and the will to push back against his enemy. His eyes flickered to me. I knew he would be hurt, but I have to what needs to be done. Iris stop. No, he looks back at Vlad with a newfound energy. He somehow pushes him back so hard that Vlad falls in shock. Oz lunges over him and plunges the stake into his heart. He looks to me as he began to run toward me. I love you. This would be the last I see him, Oz. I looked up at Vlad and using every bit of strength to push against the stake from piercing my heart. I growled and snarled in anger as I was using all the energy with me. I glanced at Iris. She was on her knees. DM or A behind her. Tears streamed down her face as she raised a glowing object in her hand. Fear struck me as I saw it was a knife. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Stop, no. I shouted in pure, consuming panic. I looked up at Gladys not as my enemy, but an obstacle in the way of saving Iris. I roared as I pushed against Lad, sending him flying. I grabbed a stake and lunged forward, causing it to stab him right at the center of his chest. I saw the life leave him, but I didn't care. I stumbled as I got up with the strength I had left and I ran toward my Iris. She looks at me through her tear-filled eyes. I love you. But she yells as she plunges it into her chest. No. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I felt my knees weaken by the sight of my mate. I skidded to my knees. She fell into my arms. Lifeless. My own tears fell freely without any restraint. No, Iris. What have you done? A glass knife was sticking out of her chest. Open your eyes, Lil. Look at me. But she laid there with her eyes closed. Open your fucking blue eyes. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I cried and held her to my chest and rocked her back and forth. Please don't leave me. You're the only person that understands me. Please, Iris, please, please. She was the reason I was alive. The reason why I had a reason to live. She was the good part of me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I kept repeating over and over again as the consuming pain of her gone infested my soul. I thought if I repeated her name long enough, her eyes may open. The glowing glass knife in her chest stopped glowing. She was gone. The knife dissolved into smoke, into nothing, as did my meaning to life. A glowing transparent from rises from my recessed body. It formed into a person. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She stood there, in a ghost-like form. She was glowing and beautiful. Another form flows from Iris, a small person. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Tears streamed down my face as I saw my mate with a young girl. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My young daughter. She was so beautiful she smiled at me. I'll be waiting for you, Papa. My eyes widened when I heard my daughter's beautiful voice in my head. She looked back up to her mother. Iris walks to me silently. She bends down in front of me. She raises her hand and cups my face. I couldn't really feel it, but I did feel a warmth on my cheek. She leans in and presses her lips against my forehead. Be Free, Chapter 52. My breath hitched when I heard her voice in my mind, but then I doubled over in pain as an excruciating agony stabs my mind. Images were flashing before my eyes. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Events. Memories. Slowly as I thought of them loading into my head, they became more familiar by the second. Every emotion I felt. Every memory made. Memories of the skies. Memories of glowing beings. Memories of glass castles. Memories of war and chaos. Glorious chaos made by me. Memories of losing her. She fell from my arms. I wanted desperately to take her away. She formed into a flower and her petals flowed away to here. To the mortal world. 6 petals. 6 leaves. All of them were her. But I didn't even know it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I muttered. I had found her. Which means my dream, my reflection. It was of a different depiction. He looked like me, stood like me. But his eyes, they were not me. Red eyes. The red-eyed man leans in and said, You're the mirror. You're my reflection. I snarled and said, You're not real. I know who I am. How could you? You don't remember anything about who you are. I clenched my jaw and yelled, Then why the hell are you here? To help you. To help me how? By showing who you really are. I growled. How will you do that? How can you? The man cups my head with both of his hands and said, Let me in. Remember who you are. I stood frozen. I remember. I mumbled to myself in shock. I was born from chaos. My name is Kiro. I'm the god of chaos. Lightning from the sky struck me. I yelled in pain as I felt this power growing inside of me as if a beast was truly released. I felt energy I have no felt before. Strength I didn't know existed. Power beyond imagination was overflowing my mind. Body and soul. The lightning stops. I looked down at myself. I felt different. My wounds were gone. I stood up. But all thoughts of myself were gone when I saw my beloved mate. Although I had memories and I knew who I was, I still had memories of ours. And yes, she is Esme, but she is still my iris. My flower. Seeing her dead body, I felt a rage I had never before. I turned my head to the woman that started it all. DM or I stood there, petrified. Wait. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Please. Rage tore my every being. I was known in the heavens as a god of chaos. It is time to remind DM or A of what that means. I stomped towards DM or A, grabbed her by the neck and slamming her into a tree. Tears were running down her cheeks in fear. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Please. I growled as I pulled her in and slammed her harder against the tree. Silence. I stood there shaking in fury. You have not only taken my love once but twice. Her fear turned to pure hatred. I do not regret it. She deserves that and more. I looked into her eyes and growled. I am going to make you suffer like never before. DM or A's her hand where a flash of green appears. The ground rumbles as DM or A summons her army of vampire. I snarled and stood back. It was me against what seemed like an endless army of vampires. She smiles wickedly. You are alone. I was about to charge forward when an arrow was past me and shoots a vampire in the chest. It falls to the ground. He isn't alone. I frowned as I turned around and there stood Genevieve on a horse with her mate. Make-A-Witch, Alpha Chief of the Dakota tribe. Genevieve had tears in her eyes as she looked upon her sister. Make-A-Witch looked angry. He rides forward with him and Genevieve. But soon, I stood dumbfounded when a whole army of tribes came out of the forest following Make-A-Witch. An endless wave of brave men and women, including my friends and family. Sozien, Ozzy, I, Eudora, Kurt, Dylan. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Soul. Noah. Enza. Thin. Noah and Leo. Make-A-Witch and the army stopped where I stood. How did you know to come? How did you get here? I asked in shock. Make-A-Witch smirks. Looks like you have someone up there looking out for you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Sozien and Ozzy came to me. They look different. They both chuckled as they looked at me. It is good to see you again. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I remembered them. They were my loyal friends. They were a member of the Royal Guard, the top warriors of the God of the Heavens. They left him to join me on my quest to find Esma. I chuckled. It is good to finally remember you. My friends. I turned around and faced DM Oi. She looked panicked as she saw I had my own army. What were you going to do, now DM Oi? You've lost. No, I haven't. I don't lose, she shouted. I grabbed her neck and squeezed it. You are nameless. The enthusiasm, lovely. You are nothing DM Ore. She raises her arm to probably do a spell. But quite frankly, I'm tired of her spells. I've lived through it for 800 years. I grab her wrist and I broke it. She screams in pain, but I do not let her go. I have no mercy for someone who had none for me. I grabbed her other hand, and I began to slowly bring her pain from the inside out. She writhed in agony as I set every nerve of hers on fire. Her army of vampires charged forward. I looked at her ugly horde and then over my shoulder at Iris's sister and make her wait. I growled deeply. No. I can't let people who are important try fight for me anymore. I pushed back DMOA. I looked up at the sky and at the stars. Iris is up there somewhere. She wouldn't want any more bloodshed. I looked at the vampires and smirked. But I am not Iris or Esme, though she's the good in me. I snickered. I have a slight tendency to want to be the bad guy. I felt my power pulsating throughout my body. It felt good to be free. Everyone's eyes were filled with terror when they saw my eyes glowing a bright bloody red. I jumped in the air. I raised my arms and summoned all of the powers from up high. I could hear the rumbling and the striking of thunder and lightning rolling through the sky. I roared as I mustered the power I needed. I snarled and looked at the horde. You will be no more. I strike the ground. The impact causes the earth to roll away from me like giant waves, hitting the horde. My power emanates from my very body. I watch all of the vampires flee in fear as it obliterates them into oblivion. DMOA could do nothing as she saw her soldier being destroyed. She stands up, anger rolling off of her. She raises her hands to strike me with her green light of magic. But I simply waved my hand and it stopped. I stand in front of her and placed my hand on her forehead. I was here to kill and save Iris. Iris is gone. I guess that only leaves one thing to do. I used my power to begin absorbing Demo Ras magic. She screams as my power utterly consumes hers from her body. I watched in joy as I saw the woman that ruined my life begin to slowly and painfully become weaker and weaker. But suddenly a ray of light appears between me and DMOA, forcing us both to fall back. It was a single spotlight from the moon. I looked up and I saw a floating figure slowly lowering down. Everybody became deathly quiet. As it came closer and closer to the ground, I felt my heart pound against my chest. As there stood she who I thought would be lost from me forever. She was standing in the middle of the spotlight. Her hair was glowing, floating in this mystical energy from the moon. It seemed every strand of her hair contained light. I looked to where Iris's body was. It was gone. There she stood shining once again. I got up slowly, careful to not take my eyes off of her. Everybody around us was bewitched by her beauty and grace. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, I said in a low, rough tone. She opens her eyes to my voice and they were shining in white starlight. She does not focus on me. It's as if she doesn't know me at all. She slowly turns around in a graceful manner and walks with a trail of glittering light, dripping from her clothes. She stops in front of DMOI. She stood there shaking in fears. Iris spoke, but in the voice that I don't fully recognize. It was like her voice mixed with tens of others, speaking at the same time. Dear Morline of Valgo, you have involved yourself in the business of the gods where you were never needed. Now it is time for the gods to deal with you. No, she screams. I will be good. I swear. No. Iris places her hand on Demo Ras for head. Iris shines bright and brighter. She was shining so bright that I couldn't look anymore. Everybody had to turn away. Iris's light consumed DN or a whole. She draws back her luminosity. There on her knees was an old, bitter woman. Her body falls away and disappears into a dust. Iris turns around and faces me. She approaches me and I stand very still. I didn't want any part of me hindering her from coming to me. She stands before me, her beauty clouding my mind. Kiro Stornhold, you have the gods' favor. They have gifted you with a choice. I tilted my head. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You are welcomed back to the heavens. There is a seat waiting for you. I chuckled. So the gods have finally accepted me. This feels strange. She stood there unfazed. What is your choice? I stood there and looked at where her body was laying before it disappeared. I have chosen to remain here. I am Kira, but I am also ours. She releases a small grin. If that is your wish, then the gods will not want you to be here alone. I frowned in confusion. Am I gonna have a babysitter? You have a tendency to be rather chaotic. However, it seems there is only one effective method that is able to tame you. I said cheekily. Love. I froze in place at the mention of that word. And how are you going to do that? I ask, hesitantly. She smiles at me and says, Goodbye. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Or should I say ours? Then in a flash she was gone. I stumbled forward, almost like I wanted to catch her, keep her from disappearing. I looked around and everyone was staring at me, quiet and in shock. Look! Someone shouted. I frowned and saw everybody staring up above me. I raised my head and I felt my heart beat once again. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I yelled as I ran in the middle of the ray of light. She was being carefully floated down. Is it her? Is it really her? I opened my arms and saw her float gently into them, her head resting on my chest. I shakily bent down to my knees, resting her on my lap. The light slowly disappears, leaving us in an ordinary night. I looked down at her hair off. I felt weak at the sight of her. I thought I was never going to see her again. I felt tears prick my eyes as I saw her beautiful face. I looked at everybody around and saw them all staring at Iris in anticipation, waiting to see if she was okay or not. I gulped and looked back down. I cupped her face and ran my thumb over her cheek. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I said gently. I felt my spirit soar when I felt her begin to move and groan in her unconscious state. I let out a breath of relief. A breath I didn't know I was holding. I held her to my chest and rocked her back and forth as I felt her body close to my own. It assured me that she was really here. I looked up at the sky. I knew they were watching. Thank you, I said to them. They brought her back to me. I pressed my lips to her forehead and she groans and moves again. Except this time I saw her eyes fluttering open. I felt my heart melt when I saw her familiar blue eyes. I held my breath as I watched her wake up. She didn't move straight away. She looked around for a moment, taking her surroundings in, and then finally, her eyes landed on me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I remember everything, she said, weakly. I stroked her cheek and said gently, So do you. She stares at me for a moment and then all of a sudden, her eyes filled with tears. Do you remember when you came to my sanctuary and you wanted to steal something? I chuckled through my own tears. Yes, she raises her hand on my cheek. I closed my eyes and felt her touch. I soaked it right in. It was the best feeling ever to have her touch me. I opened my eyes and she said, I always wanted to tell you that you did steal something. You stole my heart. Tears streamed down her face, and I never ever want it back. Good, because I intend on keeping it forever. Chapter 53. I felt strange having all of these memories that I forgot I even made, remembering a life I didn't know I had. Ever since I woke up a couple of hours ago, I've been rethinking about everything that had happened in my life. In Mesm, but in also Iris. In two in the same. I felt relieved that even though I had found myself, I still felt like the Iris I knew from a couple of days ago. I looked at everybody around me. It was like when I was little. Everybody was standing outside, hugging and laughing together. I gulped. I was afraid I could never see such a thing in my life. I was actually really afraid that once all of this was over that the moon goddess would take my sight away because there was no need of it anymore. But I felt myself become of my new memory of the time I had with the moon goddess herself. I had woken up in a garden. I recognized it. I've been here before. It used to be home, my sanctuary. The moon goddess was sitting on a chair, surrounded by white lilies. "Come, child, let me see your face." I gulped as I cautiously approached her. She looked so beautiful, so pure. I knelt down on my knees in front of her and bowed down. I hope I did the right thing, but I'm not sure. She smiles and leans over, cupping the side of my face in a motherly manner. "My darling, you did exactly what you had to do. You had found the flower. It was you all along." I gulped and looked up. "I was afraid that you would take your powers away from me. If I had only listened to Kiro and left where he wanted to, we might have prevented all of this." She shook her head. "No, everything happened how it should. Do not feel responsible. My darling, I can't believe I finally remembered who I am. I feel good being me again." The moon goddess's eyes softened. "But you are not you. Still." I tilted my head in confusion, probing her to explain. "Yes, you are Esme, but you are also Iris. You have a whole different life to remember other than Ismes. Esme and Iris are very similar, but they are not the same, my darling. So I am new. I am someone that is the same and yet completely different." The moon goddess smiles. "You have evolved." I gulped and looked down at my hands and frowned. "What of our SS fate? Please help them. Send anyone you can. I can't bear the thought of ours being defeated." "What would you do for this?" There was nothing I could do. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Take my sight. Take my eyes." The moon goddess sat in surprise. "You would trade the one thing you always wanted from me to help them. I killed myself for ours. I died so then he could be free. My sight is the least of my problems right now." "No," my head snaps up and frowned. "No." She smiles and shook her head. "You have done enough. My darling, you have sacrificed enough. Maybe it is time to gift you instead." I sat there patiently, awaiting for what she was going to say. "I will gift you your eyes as a permanent reward." My eyes widened. "You would do that?" "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You have practically saved Earth." "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." That is not something to take lightly. You have brought balance to the cosmos again. What of ours? You let me deal with that. I felt myself relax in peace knowing that they would be all right, and that I could forever have my sight back. I smiled at the fond memory. I don't think I will ever hear from the moon goddess ever again, at least until our bodies die and we are ascended. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." My mate approaches me. He offers my hand to help me off of the ground. I stand up and he instantly grabs my waist and pulls me against his body. He leans and unkisses me, then he kisses my forehead. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Love. Oz gives me a little candle and we both walk to the water. He keeps his arms securely around my shoulders and leads me to the lake where I grew up. Everybody lit a candle each. There was a moment of silence. Everybody was praying and thinking of the loved ones they lost. All the mates and their families who had died in the battle. I thought of Donnie. The memory was still burned into my mind, imprinting it forever. People in their own time walked to the bank and released the flame into the water, watching it float off. Soon everybody began to do the same. I bent down and placed my flame in the water. Memories of Donnie overflowed my mind. All good memories, of course. His laugh, his cheeky boyish wink he always did. I loved him so much. I released the flame, watching it flow with all of the others. Soon the whole lake was covered in little candle light. It looks beautiful. Some people believe that when lighting a candle for someone you lost, you are lighting their path so then they can find their way to the heavens. It is a nice thought. A thought would comfort people in knowing that their loved ones would be okay. I felt my eyes sting in tears as I saw my candle float off. I leaned my head against Iris's chest. He kisses my head and rests his own on tip of mine. Yes, all right, Lil. Knowing Donnie, is probably going to haunt us for the rest of our lives. I think he just might. Everybody went back for the Blood Moon pack and we all celebrated. It was a time of being thankful for being alive and spending time with family. And I was sitting on a log near the giant bonfire my Uncle Sol made. He was so excited to make one. I looked at Ars and saw he was already staring at me. What were you staring at? I asked cheekily. Well, I'm staring at you. Love. He wraps his arms around my waist and lifts me up. He sits me on his lap, which causes me to laugh a bit. I wrap my arm around his shoulder for support and he just looks up at me. I stroke his cheek. What happens now? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What do you mean? I gulped. We're not the same as we were before. We're not just Ars and Iris anymore. We're a star and a god. That's a big difference. He grabs my hand. Are you scared? Love. I nodded my head. Yes, I confessed. I just don't know how to handle it. He smiles up at me. Probably the biggest smile I had ever seen on his emotionals' face. We live. My love. We are a new version. A better one. I chose to remain here with you because we started our love as Ars and Iris and we will leave this world just as that. And what about when we leave this world? What then? Then our love will continue on in the next life. And then the next life and then in the next life. Love. All we have to do enjoy it all. I smiled down at my mate and leaned in to give him a kiss. But Oz said, for the time being, the moon goddess has gifted you with eyesight forever. So I have made it my goal to show you what you've been missing out on. What? I want to show you every beautiful thing this world has to offer. This world was made for you to be able to be seen by your eyes. Love. And I'm going to make that happen. I leaned in and rested my forehead on his. What if we have children? His smile widens. Then we will take them. We will travel with all of our children. I laugh. How many do you think we will have? He shrugs cheekily. At least 5. My eyes widen. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I laughed and shook my head. Well, if they're all yours then amen. He gives me a small grin. Well, if we're gonna have kids, maybe we should start practicing. I laughed and hit his shoulder. I took in a deep breath and looked all of my family, laughing and enjoying themselves. I saw all of my aunties sitting on my uncle's laps, including my mother and father. It's funny to think this all started with them. The original 3. First it was Ander and Lizzie, and Noah and Mia, and then Solomon and Dayla. Ever after years and years of being together, they were all so madly in love, and they also loved each other. They were all the best of friends. I looked down at Oz. Now it was my turn. Oz got up, still holding me bridal style, and we both went inside. I pointed him in the direction of my old room. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's so weird to be back here after so long. He lies me on the bed and bends down and began to kiss me. I grabbed into his waist and pulled him closer to my body. He chuckles in my lips. You hungry, huh? Maybe a little. Don't worry. Love. It'll satisfy you. Epilogue. I was looking down at the blueprints with Ozai. I pointed to the garden area. I want it just like how it used to be, except I think I want more lilies and also a little pond so that in the spring some ducklings might come. Azea rolls his eyes but smirks. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And what about this area? I want that one to be big because I want it to be the main family room. I want it to be able to fit all of us comfortably. I looked up at the roof where Esso's Ian was cringed. Please tell me you haven't been drinking. I shouted up there. Zo's Ian stops hammering and turns to me. I've only had 1 bottle. I'm fine. He laughs. She has been very happy the last month. He looked whole again. I groaned in worry. I took a step back and took in the whole picture and smiled. We decided to repair the damages made to the castle. Except this time we're going to make it better. More homey and less of the cursed vibe, if that makes sense. I felt a pair of warm hands grab my hips. Oz kisses my shoulders. How's it going, love? I smiled and said, I love bossing people around. He chuckles and rests his hands on my rounded stomach. How's our little pup doing? I look down at my swollen belly. I think he is doing good. How do you know it's going to be a he? I turn around and circle my arms around his neck. Because ours, a mother knows. He leans in and pecks my lips. He looks at the castle and sighs. This is going to be good. I smiled and leaned back on Oz. It really is. I was 4 months pregnant. I feel pretty big right now. But I love it. My little child growing within me. It feels amazing. When I'm not feeling nauseous. It was actually hard knowing I was pregnant. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was over the moon about it. But I guess I felt worried about the baby's safety. I was nervous. Remembering feeling content when all of a sudden Vlad came and did what he did. Oz felt nervous too. But I think we have to realize that everything is okay. We're fine and the baby is fine. That's all that matters. I lean in and press my lips against RSS. He groans and wraps his arms around me tightly. He presses harder into my lips hungrily. I giggled quietly as I leaned back. You feeling all right? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He growls. Not anymore. We're in a little bit of a hard problem. I snorted. You mean you're in a little bit of a hard problem? He groans. Please don't leave me like this. Love. I laughed and shook my head. I can't right now. I lean and whispered. But just you wait for tonight. Can you guys stop being horny and actually help? As Oz shouted. Oz growls and shouts. Can you stop being drunk and actually help? As Oz eyes him. Tooth. My friend. I give Oz a last peck. Go on. I have to run some errands anyway. What way you doing? I just need to go into town for a few things. Oz looked unsure for me to be going out. Fine, but please take one of the guards with you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's all over. Vlad is gone. DMOA is gone. Please, Iris. It'll just put my mind at ease knowing that you have some kind of protection. Okay. I will, I said defeated. Oz grins gratefully. Thank you. The nurse was leading me down the hall. A man in a baseball hat walks out of the room. Who's that? Oath at her grandson. He visits from time to time. I nodded my head understandingly. Well, I'm happy that at least someone still visits her. The nurse stops at the door and turned around. She is a very confused woman, so be gentle with her. I nodded my head. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The nurse left me at the door. I slowly opened it and stepped inside. Closing it behind me, the old woman in the bed turns to me and frowns. Who are you? You're not a nurse. I smiled and came and sat on a chair next where she rested. No, I'm not. My name is Iris. The woman eyes me suspiciously and said, My name is Anna. I smiled at the woman. It's lovely to finally meet you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She frowns. You have heard of me. I nodded my head yes. I've heard many wonderful things about you from a dear friend of mine. His name was Donnie. Donnie, Anna said quietly in thought. That name sounds familiar. Yes, you two used to know each other. Anna sits up and asked. I have never told anybody this, but I have dreamed about that name for many years. My brows raised in surprise. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She nods her head, yes. I thought it was a random dream, but now that you have come told me he was real, well, now I wonder. Ever since I was young, and even when I married, I was shouting at this man named Donny to turn around. But he never did. I always wonder who he was. Tears stung my eyes. You were someone very important to him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And I looked sad. When I was young, I would wait for him. I convinced myself he was a real man. But he never came. I smiled and took Anna's hand. He was real. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He was very real and he loved you with all his heart. Your enthusiasm, loved. Is he dead? I gulped as I tried to hold myself back. I smiled through my tears. Yes, he is. He wanted to come see you and tell you everything, but he never got the chance. Anna looks at a loss. She was silent for a moment, gathering her thoughts. She looks at me and asked, "Will you tell me what he was like? Tell me his story." I squeezed her hands. I would be happy to. We sat there for hours. I told her everything about Donny, how he was so funny and kind. Anna was crying of laughter by the end of it. I also told her a bit about me and my story, but of course left out the magical things. He sounds so wonderful. She laughed. I laughed along with her. Yes, he was the best. He always knew how to make smile. Anna began to look a little confused as she stared at me. What was your name again? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I answered gently. You sound very family. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Do you know my grandson? I frowned. No. Oh, forgive me. You just sound so similar to how my grandson described his friend. I laughed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What did he say? He said he had a lady friend, and that she was a lovely girl. Blonde hair, blue eyes. He said that once him and her was doing archery once and you almost shot his friend. She began to laugh. I froze in my seat. He said that. What else did he say? I began to probe her. He also said she was expecting. Anna said, gesturing to my stomach, but it isn't you. Don't worry. My grandson is a very popular man. I have very bad memory. He only began visiting me a couple of months ago saying I was his grandmother. So now he comes once a week and tells me some funny stories. My heart was beating hard against my chest. Will you excuse me for a moment? I got up and raced out of the room. It can't be. I looked around the building wide-eyed. I burst out of the door and looked around the street. It was bustling with people. I growled in annoyance. There were too many people around to look for him. Why would he come as a grandson? People were bumping into me and apologizing. I got shoved slightly. Oh, sorry, a man said as he walked past. I felt my heart stop. I knew that voice. It sounded deeper, raspier, but I knew. He was walking away with a coat and a baseball hat on. I stepped forward. Why they? The man stops. His hat was low as he looked over his shoulder. I could barely see his eyes. But I knew. He gives me a smile and cheeky wink. He raises his finger to his lips. Sure. I ran to him and jumped in his arms. He wraps his arms around me tightly. How are you, Dakota tribe? They found me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Why have you not come back? He smiles and wipes my tears. I need to live for myself now. Now the curse is gone. I'm free. He kisses my hand and places his hand on my stomach. And you have a pup to focus on. Will we ever see you again? He steps back and snickered. Perhaps. Wait. What do I tell the others? Don't tell them anything. They'll come back when I'm ready, Lil. What about SOS Ian? HES your best friend. Shouldn't he know? Donnie gives me a knowing smile. Who says he doesn't know? Donnie steps back and gives me his smile and a cheeky wink. I'll see you soon, Lil. I shook my head and smiled. You cheeky bastard. He shrugs his shoulders innocently. Couldn't help myself. I laughed in joy. He turns around, and he disappears in a flash of smoke. It would explain how SO's Ian has been so happy this last month. He looked like his old self again. That night we were all at dinner. I looked at SO's Ian and his eyes caught my own. He gives me a cheeky wink and I snickered. Later on I went to bed. Oz came up and snuggled in behind me. I love you, Lou. He places his hand on my stomach. Everything was perfect. And yet everything was. I snuggled deeper into SS arms. I was truly happy. Now I get to spend the rest of my life. Actually the rest of eternity with the love of my life. I felt whole. I love you too. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Forever and always. He kisses my neck and we went to sleep. Now I knew what my aunties and my mother talked about. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Total peace. The end. Bonus chapter. I look around and realized I had forgotten to bring a towel with me. Damn it. I swear I always forget to bring a towel in the bathroom. I looked at my giant stomach and groaned. I have had enough of this child. I want this pup out of me right now. I am sick of being an elephant. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I waited for any kind of comedy and found none. I grunted and rolled my eyes. Archie is probably asleep on the bed again. He partied for the first time in years last night. I went with him, but I didn't drink. It was the first time they all saw a pregnant woman party. Aghast. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Whatever name you're eager to respond, just come here. I need a towel. And again I have no response. I growled in frustration. Damn that man. I grabbed a bar of soap and threw it at the door. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I screamed. Suddenly the door bursts open. Oz comes running with eyes wide with panic. Is it the pup? But then he slips and falls down over the bar of soap. I fell. I wince. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I hear him groans. Are you okay? He groans. Why the fuck is the soap on the floor? He said while rubbing his head. I shrug. I dunno. He sits up and leans over the bath. What were you shouting for? Love. I forgot my towel. Can you get the towel? That's hanging out the window. Oz shakes his head but had a grin on his face. You're a piece of work, aren't ya? Love. But you love me anyways. God knows I do. He gets up and leaves for only a moment. Only to return with the big warm towel I wanted. I placed my hands on either side of the bath and began to stand up. Whoa. What the hell do you think you're doing? Oz said as he was looking at me like I was crazy. I'm getting out of the bath. Just wait. It'll help you. I rolled my eyes. I'm pregnant. Not disabled. I can still stand up on my own. Oz quickly places the towel down and turns back to me. I'm not taking any chances. Love. That's my pup you're carrying. I smiled and shook my head. Men all right. Give me your hands. Oz said. As annoying as it was, I felt loved. He had been very helpful ever since I got pregnant. He was very attentive to my every need. He has also become 10 times more protective. If that's even possible. I give Oz my hands and he gently pulls me up on my feet. He places my hands on his shoulders and puts his own hands on my hips. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. slowly step over the bath. I took it a step at a time as I got out of the bath. When I was safely out, Oz grabs the towel and wraps it around me. I felt my lips pull into a smile. Oz catches my expression and freezes. "What?" I chuckled. "You just worry too much." Oz chuckles. He puts his hands on my swollen belly. I can't help myself. "Flower, I love seeing you like this. I love seeing you carry the life we both made. It's beautiful. You're beautiful. But it also scares me." I raise my arms up and cup his face. "What were you worried about?" "Soldier." He wraps his arms around me, careful of my midsection. "I lost a child once. We lost a child in a sense. I just don't want anything bad happening. That's all." I nod my head. "I understand that. But nothing bad will happen, because there is no Vlad, no DM or A, and no curse. It's just us and our baby." "Our baby." He leans down and pecks my lips. "I love you." I smile. "I love you too." I walked out of the bathroom and into the closet. It was very hot, so I just got a pretty pale blue maxi dress. I put it over my head and left it to flow down the rest of my body. Ever since I got pregnant, I'd a profound disdain for pants. All I want to wear is long, loose dresses. I walked outside onto the balcony and looked at the beautiful, wide-open water in front of me. The sun was set in about an hour or so. I looked at the house next to mine. The boys were there, as I and S goes Ian as well as Dylan. Eudora and Kurt left for the human world. They wanted to be away from anything supernatural for a while. I could understand why, considering we had only quite recently been in this giant supernatural revelation. However, Dylan stayed. He did not ask to stay, and we never expected him to leave. It was this organic understanding between him and us. I think with Donnie gone, Dylan has not been the same. He doesn't drink anymore, which was surprising. He seems to be always lost in thought. S.O.'s Ian has been good for him, and I think in a way Dylan has been good for S.O.'s Ian. They both have a friend they can confide in. I felt hands run up my hips and waist, then cupping my stomach. I smiled as I leaned into the touch. Oz kisses my neck. "What's in that head of yours?" "Nothing." I content lie. For once there is nothing. In just simply admiring the tropical view. He kisses my neck again. "Are your eyes soaking it in?" I smiled. "Yes. I've never seen such a beautiful sight in front of me. Are you happy we came here?" I turn my head and look at him. "Of course I am. Thank you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I give him a kiss. "I'm glad I get to be here with you." He smiles down at me. "Hawaii is definitely different to A.R. Kenas. I've only been here once, and that was years ago. It seems more beautiful with you here, though." I rolled my eyes. "Well, that was cheesy." Oz chuckles and pulls me tighter against him. I had to say it. "Love. Hawaiian sunsets is a good place to say easy lines." I laughed. "I guess I'll just have to receive them with open arms." I turned around and circled my auntie's neck. I didn't lean in to kiss him, nor did words slip through my lips. All I just wanted to do was look at him. This amazing man. When I look at him, I feel unworthy of the limitless love he has. He tried to find me for years and years. Then his memories were taken from him. He had no memory of me, and yet even in his darkest days, he would wait year after year to find his mate again. Then when she died, he would wait again, year after year, just to have her in his arms, to feel the warmth of her skin. He fought through every obstacle. He fought to find me and fought to protect me. I felt incredibly unworthy. But then again, no one deserves love. But that's why it's love in the first place. To love is to love those who are unworthy, just as those who have done wrong have mercy, grace and forgiveness. All of it is love. His eyes shift from the sunset to me. His lips stretch into a smile. "What were you looking at?" "Love." Seeing his face not marred with torment, guilt, stress. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. weariness, but rejuvenated with that of peace, happiness, softness and love. I'm looking at you, of course. Seeing him like this, I felt my own mouth stretch into a small grin. You're different. He tilts his head almost like puppy. How so? My love, you don't hold the world on your shoulders anymore. You look happy. He wraps his arms around me tightly, but still aware of the bump. You did it now. Love. My brows creased in curiosity. They'll tell you a secret that every man has, but has too much pride to admit. Every man knows he reaches true happiness when the woman he loves is at his side. The woman he can talk with, laugh with, a woman he can hold in his arms, a woman he can raise a family with, a woman he can live life with, a woman he can grow old with. I am no different. Do women have any secrets? I felt myself melt. I was overflowing with his love to the point I wanted to cry, but I didn't. Yes, but as they say, a woman's heart is an ocean of secrets. I'm a good swimmer, he said cheekily. I laughed. Yes, you are, and you have all the time in the world. I lean in and rest my head on his chest. I love you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. With my whole heart. I sometimes wonder why you chose me, not just as ours but as Kiro too. I feel guilty that you went through so much trouble just to be with me. Life is about people, my love. It is about who you want in your life and the decisions you make. Back then I wanted to rule the universe. I wanted power and chaos. But when I saw you in that glass chamber, surrounded by a beautiful garden, you were so content and so at peace. You puzzled me. I couldn't figure you out. But then I realized you look every detail, with beauty and grace in yours, and admiration for the simple things. You were pure of heart, something I thought was impossible. You crumbled my world. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I thought I could taint everything. I thought every person has darkness in them, whether it be mortals or immortals, gods or the Archaneans. But when I saw you, you were glistening with purity. That's when I knew that I didn't anyone to hurt you. You were like a rare jewel, and even with the light you had, you could love someone like me with all of my darkness and all of my sins. You still accepted me. That is why you were worth it. I stood there dumbfounded. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It was hard to love you, even in your darkness. I saw who you were. A good man. I am the luckiest woman in the world. I can't believe someone like you could ever love someone like me. He kisses my head. You're the love of my life, woman, and don't you ever forget it. He gently pulls me to the bed. Come, let us rest. We had a big day. We lie down on the bed in silence. You want to know something interesting? Go on then. You've taken my virginity 6 times. He burst out laugh. I've never thought of that. But it's true. I have, haven't I? Do you want to know something interesting? I smiled cheekily. Go on then. 6 leaves. Do you know what flower has 6 petals? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Iris. I gasped. No way. That makes so much sense. It's all in the details. Love. It's all in the details. It's strange how everything was connected and we didn't even know it. I know. I snuggled deeper into ours. Tell me a story. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What kind would you like, my love? How about how Arcanas and the human world formed their relationship? I am in the mood for history. That was a very long time ago. It actually formed out of a love story. My brows raised in interest. Tell me. Well, back then, Arcanas knew of the human world, but the human world didn't know of Arcanas. They were to strictly be kept separate. Arcanas was a mad land. Everybody was fighting each other. Stealing? There was no regard for life or peace. Everybody fought to survive. How did it become so peaceful then? Where a human woman found an unknown portal in the form of a cave pool. She heard voices. She saw reflections in the light of water, and she felt herself drawn to it. She fell and drowned. She thought herself dead. But she was not. She was accidentally transported into Arcanas. There she fell in love with a man. However, though as romantic as it may sound, their love story is definitely not a pretty one. They both hurt each other in different countless ways. But through them, the relationship between the humans and the Arcaneans formed in peace and order was set upon the land. While that must have been a shock to be transported into all and you never knew existed. Yes, well, it was very much kept secret. Only certain societies knew of it. And soon some supernaturals who lived in the human world soon forgot where they came from. I wonder if the man and woman ever ended there. Who knows? They were a very strong couple, though. She was a very ruthless woman. I heard stories where her and her husband had whole fist fights, and sometimes she comes on top. My brows raised in surprise. He would abuse her. Not exactly. She was a strong woman. She was just as ruthless as him, just as fierce as him. If anything, the odds were equal. He had met his match. They sound severely complicated, and yet extremely compatible. They did, aren't they? Ours, said chuckling. He moves around and spoons me from behind. Let's get some rest. Love. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I snuggled into ours, reveling in his touch and warmth and his safety. But I could not sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about that love story. I had my own epic love story that came with overwhelming challenges. I wonder what it was for that woman and man. I guess the story doesn't need to be told. Or maybe it should. But I guess we may never. But then again, we just might.